Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
Thank you all for joining us this week. We've got undefeated two-time super middleweight champ David Benavidez joining us this episode, and also heavyweight contender Robert Helenius. By the way, Mike, both Helenius and Benavidez have such great nicknames, the Nordic Nightmare and El Bandero Roja, A+ on originality for both those guys. Also on this episode, we're going to take a look at Saturday night's huge heavyweight bout between unified champ Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk. And in today's toe-to-toe section, we ask, how would Muhammad Ali have fared in the heavyweight division today? We're going to take a look at 5 matchups and break down how Ali's skills would have translated. But first, the biggest boxing event of the year is official. Saturday, November 6th, superstar and unified WBA, WBC, WBO World Super Middleweight Champion Canelo Alvarez takes on undefeated IBF World Super Middleweight Champ Canelo-Plant at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, live on SHOWTIME PPV. The two headliners met at a press conference Tuesday afternoon in Beverly Hills. And for those of you who haven't seen it, for the few of you who haven't seen it, I mean, this was one of the best press conferences I've ever witnessed. You know, certainly one of the best in ages. There were punches thrown. There was a trash talking, the pushing, the shoving. I mean, you name it, this had it all, and it was all legit. Mike, that wasn't your typical press conference. What were your thoughts?
I can't remember the last time a presser reached that level. I think it escalated because Plant called Alvarez a mother effer, which Alvarez evidently believes is an insult to his mother. I actually went to Merriam-Webster and looked it up. It has nothing to do with an actual mother. So there was an actual problem there with in translation, I think. Anyway, so he pushes Plant, and Plant comes back and takes a swing at Alvarez, but misses, and Alvarez counters and lands a punch to his face. It was like a real fight. It's like the fight already started. I wish Plant hadn't actually thrown a punch, which took the encounter to a level that, in theory, or possibly could imperil the actual fight, or at least his preparation for the fight.
Yeah, I mean, that's the concern here. I just hope nothing happens with that cut, and that we see the fight. But are you as concerned as I am?
Yeah, I somehow doubt Plant will have to pull out of the fight, but it's possible, depending on how bad the cut is. I didn't get a real good look at it. First of all, thank goodness it wasn't over the eye, which I think would be a bigger problem. And he'll have time to let it heal. It's like 7 weeks away, or give or take. A problem, and I'm just sort of surmising here, a problem could be sparring. How do you protect the cut and still go all out in sparring? I want Plant to be at his absolute best, which I think he's going to have a chance to win that fight. It's just unfortunate no matter what happens going forward.
Yeah, it certainly is. But, I mean, on the flip side, everybody's been talking about this fight. What impact do you think the press conference will have on the promotion?
Yeah, that was just huge. Like we were saying off the podcast, it's like trending in a big way right now. I mean, everybody wants to see that video. Let's face it, most press conferences aren't very entertaining. The fighters usually spew cliches that we've heard a million times, which is boring as hell. This press conference was anything but boring. The brawl in Beverly Hills, which is what I'm calling it, is already drawing attention to the fight worldwide. I just got a call from a British radio station asking me to talk about it. So this is just a promoter's dream. I just hope the cut doesn't become an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's been trending on Twitter since it happened, number one. I mean, nonstop. I've seen people posting about it who don't normally talk about boxing. You mentioned getting a call. So it is absolutely insane, and I can't wait. I mean, I think this has gotten off to a hot start, and we're still some weeks away. So we will see, but it's certainly shaping up to be one of the biggest fights this year, if not the biggest fight this year. And with that, we're going to move along and introduce our first guest. He is a heavyweight contender coming off a monster upset win over Adam Kownacki in March 2020. The two will meet again in an anticipated rematch Saturday, October 9th on the Fury Wilder 3 card, live on Fox Sports Pay-Per-View. Robert Helenius. Robert, first things first, how excited are you to be back in the ring following this long layoff?
Yeah, I've been waiting for this fight like 1.5 years now. So I've been training all time, every day. So I'm ready, and of course I'm excited to be. We're now in the States, so I'm waiting.
Now, you said you've been training this whole time. How has camp been ahead of your October 9th bout versus Adam Kownacki?
It has been tremendous, like a perfect camp until now. So I hope it's gonna continue this way. So I'm gonna be in my life's best shape.
Robert, we saw some recent photos of you working with Deontay Wilder down in Tuscaloosa. Can you tell us how that came about? How did that happen?
We wanted to come to the States as soon as possible for the time difference and everything to get adjusted to American style again. And we have been here, I think 3 times down here in Tuscaloosa. We like it here. So, and of course, Wilder needs some big guys sparring as well. So it worked perfectly.
How many sessions or days did you guys work together?
We work one sparring session per day almost. So, but we do our personal training at another gym. So.
Wow. Now, you guys are doing one sparring session a day. What is sparring with Wilder like? Do you see any of the improvements that have been discussed?
Everything is going really nicely. I don't discuss any details of that, but everything is going really fine. And of course, he's a tough guy.
Nice. Now, based on what
I have my own fight, and I have a own sparring partner here. I am working my style against Kownacki style guys, so I'm also sparring my own stuff here.
I see. So you've got the sparring partners who would better prepare you for Kownacki's style, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
One last question on Wilder. Based on what you're seeing, what do you think happens when he faces Fury a third time?
It's going to be a tough fight either way. Both guys are tough. I've been sparring with them both, but of course, I'm rooting for Wilder.
Okay.
Robert, getting back to you then. You were a heavy underdog when you first fought Kownacki in March of last year. How confident were you that you were going to surprise Kownacki and everyone else in that fight, and why were you so confident?
Because I have had a lot of injuries, and I haven't had the time to prepare for most of my fights. So before Kownacki fight, I've actually had like 2 years of non-injury training. So I felt everything, my conditioning, my physical, my boxing, everything improving all the time. So I knew after the Washington fight that everybody was doubting me, and probably people were thinking about that my career was over. But I knew in that fight that I was sick and I wasn't in my best shape. So after that, when we started training and improving stuff like that, I felt really deep calm and confident that I'm gonna win.
So I was going to ask you whether you had made any changes in your camp, but it sounds like it was just a matter of you being healthy.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I had a big shoulder operation 2011, and after that, I think the 5 years went by with a really, really broken shoulder, training that to getting back to my former self, and now it's like much better than even before the operation. So So I feel really good now.
Robert, I was there at the Barclays Center that night, and it was a really good fight heading up until the fourth round. Was the fight going as you expected?
Yeah, mostly. Like we know the style. I have like over 200 amateur fights, so I have the experience as well. For guys like that, you know.
Yeah, it seemed like you were landing that right hand throughout the fight, and then in the fourth round, I mean, you connected big time there. And I remember leading up to the fight that you were you sounded very, very confident. Did you believe you were going to get the knockout?
Yes, no, I don't think about those terms. I just try to execute my boxing, and what comes out of it comes out of it. I felt though that I was the better boxer in that fight, so I felt really confident that he ain't gonna do much for me.
Now, looking back, you mentioned the injuries. There were losses to, you mentioned Gerald Washington, of course, Johan Duhaupas, and Dillian White. Was it just injuries in those fights? Do you think that's what went wrong?
Yeah, and also sickness. I had a lung, really bad lungs in the Dillian White fight, so I didn't have the condition to go 12 rounds. But that's a long time ago, and I don't know what the disease is called in English, but it's athletic disease up north where you get cold air and stuff like that. So I had 3 weeks of antibiotics back then, and it has been a really rough ride. But like I said, now for the last couple of years I've been really healthy.
It sounds like you just had a lot of bad luck, unfortunately.
Yeah, it feels like that. So,
did you ever wonder at any point, I really don't know if I'm going to get back to where I need to be?
Of course, many times, and it's also hard. Like I think the hardest was after the shoulder operation. I had to stay 3 months just doing some small cardio work, because even the doctor said it's a 50-50 chance to go back to boxing. I lost like 8 kilograms of muscle mass. I don't know what that is in pounds, but
a lot.
8 kilos is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. What kept you going? I mean, you could have just said, okay, that's it, I'm done. Why did you keep going?
I never stopped training. I always kept on training, even though it felt bad and I was in a real big depression and money problems and everything was hitting me from every angle. But I felt that training was the only method that keeping me and my mental health above the surface. So, and when I felt good, I could start to improve, like with my physical, my strength and my boxing. So I felt like I still have a couple of years left.
That's a great story, and there's a happy ending, which is always a good thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So at 30, you're 37 now. By today's standards, you're just like an average age heavyweight. Do you feel you're better now than you've ever been?
Yes, absolutely. I wasn't mentally ready when I was in my early 30s or even late 20s.
Wow.
So I feel like I'm even the diet and everything is like perfect right now.
That's awesome. With that in mind, how do you see the rematch with Kownacki playing out?
Probably about the same. I can't see, like, he's probably gonna be more aggressive, and I've seen that he's been doing some head movement and stuff like that, but that's gonna eat something else away. So I feel confident this time as well.
We can't wait for it. Last question, Robert. Assuming you are victorious in the rematch, is there any one fighter that you're targeting that you want to face, or title you're chasing?
Yeah, I usually don't talk ahead of myself. I am 110% concentrated on this fight. So when I win this fight, we can ask that question again.
Well, you know what? We look forward to having you on afterward, and we will ask you that question. Robert, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to us. We wish you the best on October 9th, and let's talk again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now ready for the heavyweight world title fight.
No pain, no power.
Wilder, Fury, here we go.
It's no way out. Nah, I'ma never back down. Never run, no retreat, I don't know how.
He said he would knock him out.
Like when they fire shots on the first round.
Mama
When they fire shots on the first round.
He puts it down.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
This Saturday, the boxing world will turn to London as unified world heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua takes on former undisputed cruiserweight champ Alexander Usyk. Mike, this has been a matchup that's been in the making for a long time. Usyk has been biding his time, waiting for this opportunity, this being his third fight at heavyweight. Let's take a look at each of the combatants. Specifically, what are Anthony Joshua's advantages here?
Well, Joshua's advantages are easy to see. He's bigger and stronger and punches much harder than Usyk does, which are significant advantages when you also factor in his ability. He's also a good boxer. Excuse me, Usyk's handlers insist he's now a full-fledged heavyweight, but I don't buy that 100%. Even if he's growing into the division, he's always going to be a small heavyweight, and that's always going to be a disadvantage unless he fights another small heavyweight. Plus, I want to make something clear again, just to reiterate this. Joshua isn't just a big, strong guy. He's also a good boxer. He wouldn't be where he is if that weren't the case.
Yeah, I think if anything, that's what makes him so special. He's a very, very good boxer. Interestingly enough, you mentioned Usyk bulking up. I hear he's around 230, while Joshua's been slimming down in weight. I don't know how true that is, but do you think that changes things at all?
No, and first of all, I doubt that Usyk's going to weigh 230. That would surprise me, and I almost think that would be too much weight for him. Yeah. You can't do that. I mean, you're going to slow yourself down. Listen, it's easy. Maybe he's done it in such a way where it won't, but that just doesn't seem right to me. And I believe that Joshua maybe slimmed down a tad because he knows that Usyk's not a big puncher, but I think he's going to outweigh him by 10, 15, 20 pounds. Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me. Now, what are Usyk's advantages heading into this fight?
Well, I think he's a better fighter than Joshua, pound for pound. He's a good, polished boxer with a high ring IQ. And while he only has 18 pro fights, we were talking about this off the podcast, he reportedly has around 350 amateur fights. That's a lot more experience than Joshua has. Joshua had something like 40 amateur fights. That's how Usyk was able to become undisputed cruiserweight champion. He just outthought and outboxed everybody he faced. Will that be enough to overcome the size disparity? We're going to see on Saturday.
We sure will. Speaking of Saturday, how do you see the fight playing out?
I think Joshua is going to fight aggressively in this one, in part because he knows that Usyk probably can't hurt him. Usyk's going to use his feet and ring smarts to avoid most of Joshua's big punches and counter with shots of his own, and he's going to land some. The question is whether Usyk can do that for 12 rounds. It's definitely not going to be easy. Having that hulking guy in his face from beginning to end, we're definitely going to see how resilient Usyk is.
Yeah, and I think one key thing here is whether or not size matters in terms of, Joshua's been known to gas in fights. Does he gas out against Usyk, or does his size gas, Usyk out? And also, what kind of fight is Usyk going to fight? I mean, he's not necessarily a mover. He does have great footwork, but he's not really a mover. So, I mean, he could rely on his speed and his skill to sort of get inside and do work and then get out of harm's way. Can he get out of the jab? Will Usyk's southpaw stance be a hindrance? I mean, there's so many different ways that this fight could play out. I really like the matchup, and I'm really glad you're making your prediction first.
Well, I maybe you'll be disappointed when I say this, but I was tempted to go with Usyk, who I think has a real chance to win this fight. My gut tells me that he has a real chance. As I said, I think he's better than Joshua pound for pound. I just think Usyk's inability to hurt Joshua could end up being the difference in the fight. If Joshua has no reason to back off, he won't. I think he'll just keep coming and gradually wear down a guy I think is a much smaller man. I think Joshua is going to win by a late knockout or a clear decision.
I mean, you're 3 games behind in the prediction league. You got to take a risk, man.
Yeah, but I honestly, in the end, when I really thought it through, I just don't think he's going to win. I just think Joshua's going to win.
Yeah, you know what? I'm with you. I like Joshua here by late stoppage, maybe a clear decision. Either way, I think he wins clearly. Just too big, just too strong, too skilled. I don't think Usyk has looked as good at heavyweight. I wasn't impressed by his performance against Chaz Witherspoon. He looked lethargic against Derek Chisora, who was gassed by round 3 or round 4. And Joshua is the type of fighter, we've seen his speed, we've seen his power. He's pretty fast for a heavyweight as well. More importantly, he's constantly in the gym. He's always improving. So I expect to see a better Joshua than we saw the last time, and he's going to need to be against a guy as skilled as Usyk, a guy who's been studying him for about 2-3 years, and is ready for this moment. Is not in awe or bothered by anything, but ultimately, I don't believe that it will be enough. All right, it's time to bring in our next guest. He is the undefeated 2-time world super middleweight champion. On Saturday, November 13th, he returns to his native Phoenix to face former champion Jose Uzcategui live on Showtime. The man known as El Bandera Roja, David Benavidez. Hey, David, first things first, I saw that you started camp for November 13th against Jose Uzcategui just a day or two ago. How excited are you to be back in the gym?
I'm very excited. You know, unfortunately, you know, my last time here in California in camp, I caught COVID. But, you know, I feel like since I got that over that hump already, you know, we're coming back, you know. So now the scare of getting COVID again, you know, is non-existent. You know, I'm very excited, very motivated. You know, they just elevated my fight to an IBF title eliminator. I mean, before it was WBC, but now it's WBC and IBF. So, you know, I got even more motivation going on. You know, like I said, I'm coming into this fight. You know, I was already in shape. So, you know, I'm basically, you know, getting in shape when I was already in shape. So, you know, I'm very excited, you know, very motivated. And, you know, I'm just ready to go.
Now, you mentioned COVID. Your last fight obviously was postponed due to you contracting COVID. Now, you didn't have any bad symptoms or lingering effects at all?
Well, you know, the first 3 weeks were extremely hard. You know, when I first caught COVID, the first week was, you know, extremely hard. But, you know, I feel like, you know, 3 weeks for me, it wasn't really that bad. I got over it. Right now, you know, I just sparred yesterday and I feel really good. I've been running 6 miles, 7 miles, you know, and I've been, as of right now, I don't see any lingering effects, but, you know, I just feel good, you know, and I try, even if there was, you know, I try not to think about that anyways, you know, I'm just trying to think positive and, you know, try to work as hard as I can every day.
Gotcha.
David, the obvious question is whether you chose to get the vaccine. And if not, what are you doing to ensure that you don't contract COVID again?
Well, my doctor advised me not to get, you know, the vaccine right now because he said since I just got COVID, they said that you're supposed to get the vaccine 3 months after you get COVID. Or else, you know, you could actually end up in the hospital. That's what my doctor told me. So what I'm doing right now to make sure I don't get COVID again is, you know, we're just going to be at the Brick House Boxing. You know, we're being a little bit hand sanitizer, as you know, is mandatory, you know, every day, right after every workout, every time I grab something. And, you know, the masks, obviously the masks, and just going straight back home, you know, you know, it's a little bit boring just going home or staying home all day. But, you know, this is a really big fight for me. And, you know, I know a lot of the people were, you know, a little bit let down because I got COVID, you know, because a lot of people are coming in for different states and a lot of people have got their tickets already. So, you know, just to make sure that doesn't happen again, you know, I'm straight, you know, from the gym, straight home, and that's what I was gonna be until the fight night.
I saw on social media that you looked a little slim coming into camp. Were you still active as much as possible during the delay?
Yeah, I mean, I only took the 2 weeks off, just to make sure my body gets back. My people advised me to take some time off, but I feel like 2 weeks is more than enough for me. I got a couple IVs, and that helped me a lot, when I was sick. But after the 2 weeks, I was running as much as I can, just staying in the gym still. And like I said, I was already in shape. I mean, I had like a couple pounds left when I caught COVID. And then when I got COVID, I lost even more weight just having COVID. So right now I'm like at 188. I'm not too heavy at all, 19 pounds loose, and 8 weeks to go. So, I mean, I feel like that's perfect for me. And, I feel great. I feel light, I feel fast, and I feel strong too. So I feel like, this is perfect for me right now.
It's awesome. Do you feel that the extra time allows you maybe to sharpen up on certain things in the gym or prepare you even more for Jose Uzcategui?
Yeah, definitely. It does. And I was just thinking that the other day. I mean, I was already ready for the fight with Uzcategui, but the extra time, and I feel like by the time this camp is done, I'm going to have about 5 months training for this fight. And, just watching film on Uzcategui and, just learning his styles. And then from the stuff I had already worked on from the previous training camp, I'm still sharp on that. So I'm just, building on top of, where I had left off. And, I feel really good. I feel, the strength and conditioning work I did for my last camp. And, I feel strong. I feel like I'm probably going to look better than when I did if I would have fought August 28th.
How do you see the fight, the November 13th fight playing out?
I'm going in there. I want to be the first person to stop Uzcategui. I'm on a four fight knockout streak. In my last 4 fights, I've, stopped everybody. So I want to keep it going. I want to keep this momentum going. And I know I have what it takes because I believe in my power. And I know that Uzcategui's never fought nobody like me. But, I still have to be very cautious because, Uzcategui's a strong fighter, and he's an ex-world champion just like I am. But as of, talent and skill-wise, I feel like I have both that on my side, and, I have a little bit more weapons in my arsenal. So, but it's going to be a great fight, but I'm still looking for the knockout. I want to make a statement. And, I know the big fight's on the horizon after that fight, but first things first, we got to take care of him, and we got to do it in impressive fashion.
David, last time out against Ronald Ellis, you came in at 167 plus. In your previous bout to that, you came in over the limit. So what lessons did you learn from what happened in the lead up to the Angulo fight?
Well, I mean, the lesson that I learned is, if I miss weight, you could get a big fine and you get your title taken away. So,
yeah,
I don't want to pay a big fine no more. And then, things since when I fought Angulo, it was more, everything was a little bit more closed. There was a little bit way more restrictions. But, now I'm coming in, like I said, I'm coming in lighter in weight. And, I kind of know if there's a bubble, which I don't think there's going to be a bubble in Phoenix, Arizona, but I know how everything runs now, and, I know how to come in, and I got a good diet, and, like I said, I made the mistake, but now, I'm more mature, and I'm being more mature about my weight. So, no problem making weight for this fight, and the extra time is going to help me with that too.
What sort of things did you do differently leading up to the Ellis fight and then leading up to this fight, or is it pretty much just being more disciplined?
Oh, well, we pretty much did the same thing. As when I have a great camp like I did with the camp with Ellis, I try to follow the same routine, the same diet, and everything is pretty much the same. We're getting 6-7 miles in of running, strength and conditioning, drinking lots of water, eating really clean. So we're going to keep doing that. You know what I mean? So we got a good little routine going on. So we're going to keep following that.
David, a week before your fight, switching gears for a second, November 6th, Canelo Alvarez faces Canelo-Plant for the Undefeated Super Middleweight Championship. Canelo and Caleb held their inaugural press conference Tuesday afternoon, and it was bananas. Did you see it? And if yes, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I seen it, and it was honestly, bro, it was crazy. I think it was a mistake on Caleb-Plant's part because now, Caleb-Plant, he always tries to be the tough guy, obviously, but you know, it cost him now because now he has a big gash on his eye. I don't know how big it is. I mean, but from pictures I've seen that it's a cut and it was bleeding. So I mean, honestly, that just hurt him. Unless he, you know, he has a really good, you know, specialist to work with the cuts. But you know, that was a mistake on his part. But as of selling pay-per-views, I think that's going to sell a little bit more pay-per-views. So yeah. He took a hit, but it's going to sell a lot now. I mean, honestly, I think that's going to, you know, it's made it even more interesting than it already was. But I feel like he has to, you know, he let Canelo get to him a little bit too much, and now he has to deal with that cut during training camp and then also during the fight too, because I'm sure it's going to open up during the fight too, and that's going to be a really big problem for him when it does.
So if you sustain a cut like that during training, I mean, how does that affect you during your camp?
To be honest, I don't know. I've never sustained a cut like that before in my career, but it's in a bad place too, because I mean, not really too bad. I mean, but it is under the eye, and he's going to keep getting hit there during training camp, you know. So, I mean, I don't know. I've never been in that situation, but you know, a cut is never good, and you know, for any fighter, especially now, during training camp.
How would you have reacted if Canelo pushed you?
I don't know. I can't really say because I'm not in that situation. I mean, I know things get a little heated, and sometimes things happen really fast. So I think that's what happened. But if he would have pushed me, I probably wouldn't have swung at him. You know, I probably just would have laughed it off. You know, because the fight is where you show, you know, how tough you are. You know, for me exactly. But I don't know. I can't really say because I'm not in that position.
On the flip side, your brother Jose Benavidez Jr. was in a press conference with Terrence Crawford where Crawford swung on him.
Yeah.
What would have been your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction now was just like kind of shocked. But you, like I said, my brother showed the Canelo reflex too. You know, my brother did a good job of not getting hit. So, and you know, it's kind of funny because Canelo-Plant got hit with those 2 shots, but Canelo-Plant, you know, he's the self-proclaimed best defense in boxing. So I think it's just funny how that plays out. But it was very entertaining for me to see it. You know, it was entertaining. I mean, I guess this is what it is now. It's just more entertainment now. But it was funny to see Canelo-Plant get hit like that.
Yeah. Okay. If God forbid one of the fighters were to pull out, maybe Caleb because of the cut, do you think you'd be able to step in at the last moment? Would that be something you'd want to do?
Definitely. We're training right now. My fight is only a week after his fight, so I'll be extremely ready. And I'll be definitely willing to step in.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do you see the Canelo-Plant fight playing out if it does happen?
You know, to be honest, I feel like Canelo-Plant loses, but I feel like he has a really good chance if he doesn't get caught with any big shots. I feel like he would definitely have to move a lot and not stay in one spot. But I feel like the type of style that Canelo-Plant has, he tends to do good the first couple rounds, but he ends up getting caught with something in the later rounds, as you see with, you know, Caleb Truax. You know, obviously Truax didn't hurt him, but he caught him with a couple shots in the last rounds. And also, too, the same thing with Uzcategui. You know, he was doing great the first 7 to 8 rounds, and then he got caught, you know, in the last couple rounds. You know, he got his eye cut, and, you know, he got, you know, rocked a little bit, I think, in the 10th round. So, I mean, and Canelo, you know, he's not a one-trick pony. He does a lot of good things. You know, he mixes it up a lot. But I feel like Canelo-Plant has the reach and he has the height. So, I mean, if he keeps him at distance, it keeps him away for the whole 12 rounds, I feel like he has a really good chance. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Canelo's going to end up, you know, winning and ultimately stopping him.
Do you think if you have a good showing against Uzcategui that could land you the winner of that fight?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, it's the WBC and IBF title eliminator, and this is going to be my second title eliminator. So I feel like I paid my dues, you know what I mean? I feel like there's no other fight left in this weight class, you know, that people are really excited for, you know, after Canelo-Plant and Canelo. So, you know, like I'm saying, I'm doing exactly what I got to do. I'm on the 4th fight KO win streak. I've been looking impressive. I've been, giving some great fights, and this is gonna be add another great fight to my record. I'm very motivated. I know what comes up next after this, so definitely, I'm definitely gonna do my best, and I'm gonna come out victorious. But also too, I'm gonna give a great fight to the fans. So the people are definitely gonna be asking for it after this one.
Another bout that's been discussed is you against Jermall Charlo. Charlo recently won a wide decision over Juan Montiel. What did you make of that performance by Charlo?
It was a good performance. I feel like Montiel did better. He did really good, and he showed a lot of holes in Charlo's game plan. But, I would definitely be interested in a fight like that. But, I feel like, Charlo, too, he's just another big mouth that just talks. He doesn't really want to make any fights happen. He showed that with Bubo Andrade. He showed it with Daniel Jacobs. And now he's showing it with me. He just goes and talks, but shows little effort to make these fights happen. For me, I just want to give the fights, belt or no belt. I feel like I'm one of the best fighters, in boxing today. And, I'm willing to fight anybody. But I feel like with these other fighters, there's too much risk and very little reward fighting with me. So, I'll definitely be interested fighting with Charlo whenever he's ready, but I can't say the same for him.
What are your thoughts on him as a fighter?
I think he's a great fighter. As a person, honestly, I don't like him, but as a fighter, he's a great fighter. I've watched him for a long time, since I was like 14 years old, and I think he's a great fighter. He's a strong fighter, and I feel like a fight with me and him would be, it'd definitely be a war, but it would be a friendly fight, and a fight that people would love to see and a lot of people would talk about.
What advantages do you think you'd have over him?
I feel like I have more power. I have height. I have speed, and I'm a natural 168 pounder. If we'd fight at 168, he'd be coming up in weight. So I feel like I got more power over him.
Right.
David, you're a young guy with a big frame. How much longer do you plan to remain at 168?
As long as I can, honestly. I don't have like a time period or nothing. It's funny, everybody always asks me that, but I feel like making weight is never easy, but with a good diet, it can be done. But I'm gonna be here for as long as I can until I get as much big fights as I can. There's a lot of big fights, and I don't want to leave 168 until I make all of them happen. So until I get all the fights I want to make happen, I'm going to stay at 168 for a while.
Now, last question. Assuming you win on November 13th, you mentioned that you are top contender. You're in line for both the WBC and the IBF. What do you think is the immediate next fight for you?
Well, when I come out victorious, the obvious answer is, winner of Canelo-Plant. Like I said, I feel like this is a fight that people are excited for, and I've been working my way up to the top, and I've been doing it in impressive fashion. So I feel like there's no other fight that people want to see besides that one. But honestly, I'm open to fight whoever. I feel like if we can make a fight happen with Charlo, then I'm willing to make that happen. You got the other guy and on top rank, Edgar Berlanga. I'm willing to make that happen. There's the other guy too, the interim world title, the one that had the WBA.
David Morrell.
David Morrell. So, it's just whoever they want to put me up against, man. I'm not complaining about everything. I'm a fighter at the end of the day, so I just want to fight, and I just want to prove to the people that I'm the best. And whoever I got to go through and whoever they put in front of me, that's who I'm going to fight. But I feel like when I come out victorious, I think the fight to make happen is winner of Canelo-Plant.
Well, we can't wait. David, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. Wishing you nothing but the best. Hope you have a great camp, and we look forward to having you back on after November 13th or before November 13th.
Okay, thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Now ready for the heavyweight world title fight.
No pain, no power.
Wilder, Fury, here we go.
It's no way out. I'ma never back down, never run, no retreat, I don't know how.
He said he would knock him out!
Like when they fire shots on the first round.
Mamma mia!
When they fire shots on the first round.
He puts him down!
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
All right, it's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. This week we ask, how would Muhammad Ali have fared in today's heavyweight division? Now, Ali's name is back in the news. I don't know if it ever leaves the news, but before we get into that question, Ken Burns has a new documentary out titled Muhammad Ali on PBS right now. Mike, you and I, you mentioned that you have been watching it. What are your thoughts thus far?
Listen, I'm a huge fan of Ken Burns. I must have watched his baseball documentary 10 times, no exaggeration. And I've always been just fascinated with anything related to Ali. So the documentary was a can't miss project for me. Really looking forward to it, and it hasn't disappointed. Those who followed Ali's life and career closely might not learn that much from the documentary, although I have picked up a few things in the first two segments. Nice. But Burns is able to lay out the entire story of Ali in a compelling dramatic detail, while providing, countless clips of him and others that we don't normally get to see. So that was just absolutely fascinating for me. I've been riveted, and I plan to stay riveted until the series is over.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it as well. I mean, Burns has done some pretty great documentaries in the past, and I've heard nothing but good things about this one. Now, Mike, Ali is considered obviously the greatest heavyweight ever, standing 6'3", a very athletic, 215 pounds or so. But given the size of heavyweights currently, would Ali be as successful today as he was during his time?
Well, let me preface my response by saying that I do believe that Ali, at his best, was the greatest heavyweight of all time. And even in his second incarnation, when he relied more on guile than athleticism, he was still better than anybody else. Yeah. I think you can argue that Joe Louis is number one. That's a different but fun discussion. But for me, it's Ali. So how would Ali fare today? I think he'd fare very well. He had speed and athleticism that we've never seen before or since in any heavyweight. We may never again. And even though he had an unorthodox boxing style, he obviously was a brilliant boxer. He wasn't a big puncher, but many of those he fought said he hit harder than they realized before, going into the fight.
Yeah.
And he had one of the best chins of all time on top of everything else. All that is why he would succeed today. In fact, because the competition today really can't compare to the golden age of heavyweights, which was Ali's era, I think he would have been even more dominating today than he was then.
Yeah, you know what? I 100% agree with you. First of all, just think about someone like Evander Holyfield. In his prime, how successful would he have been today? And I think he would have been extremely successful. And then comparing Ali to Holyfield, I mean, other than perhaps infighting, Ali did everything better than Evander Holyfield. So I think he would have been highly successful. And you mentioned power, like you said, a lot of his opponents said that Ali was more powerful than you think. Heck, you look at almost all of his big fights, and he won nearly all of them by stoppage. I mean, that's pretty impressive, and that's not something you could say for a lot of guys. But let's take a look at some of these individual matchups, looking at, arguably the top 5 heavyweights today. We'll start with Tyson Fury. How would Ali fared against him?
I think this would have been the most difficult fight for Ali today. Ali, who was 6'3", around 210, 215 at his peak, he never fought anyone near Fury's size. I went through his record. Buster Mathis was Ali's heaviest opponent. He weighed 256 pounds, but he was only 6'3". Ernie Terrell was 6'6". That's tall, but he weighed only 212 when he fought Ali. Fury is 6'9", and he weighed 273 pounds when he fought Wilder the last time. And Fury is, on top of that, Fury's the most athletic heavyweight today. That's a tough matchup for Ali, I think. That said, Ali is Ali. As good an athlete as Fury is, and he's a very good athlete, as well as he moves, he's just not in Ali's class. The early version of Ali, I think, would have just outmaneuvered him, and the latter version of Ali would have outsmarted him. I think Fury would have had to, if he would have had any chance at all against Ali, he would have had to fought Ali like he did in the second fight with Wilder, which was to use his size advantage by leaning on him, pressuring him, that kind of thing. I just think Ali would have diffused that by using rope-a-dope like he did against George Foreman, or he would have clinched with Fury to diffuse what he was doing until Fury began to slow down. And I think at that point, Ali would have just taken over the fight. I'll say this, though. Ali-Fury would have been an absolutely fascinating matchup.
I'll tell you what, Ali Fury would have been the best trash talking in a build-up to a fight that maybe we've ever seen. I mean, that would be unbelievable. That would destroy any pay-per-view record. But I'm with you. I think that in order for Fury to have a chance against Ali, he would have to use his advantages, which in that fight would be his size. And I think Ali zips in and out. And is able to outquick him, at least the younger version of Ali, and the older version I think is just way too crafty, and I think would be able to do the same, because even that version, although he was a bit more flat-footed, still possessed fast hands and still could move when he needed to, and you didn't want to get hit by him too many times. So I think Fury would seriously struggle with Muhammad Ali. What about the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder?
Wilder would not have wanted to fight Ali. The matchup wouldn't have been good for him. Ali had trouble with Joe Frazier and Ken Norton, in part because they were like volume punchers who stayed in Ali's face and didn't wear down like George Foreman did. Wilder looks for one shot, essentially, which works against almost everybody. Everybody except Fury in the second fight. Ali would have just outboxed Wilder. And even if Wilder was able to slip in some big shots, there's a pretty good chance that Ali would have been able to take them. I mean, Ali absorbed every punch and got up every time he went down in his entire career. And he faced some big punchers, including Ernie Shavers. Plus, Wilder's best punch is a straight right. Ali, I think, was more susceptible to the left hook, sure, which is what Frazier and Norton used against him.
Yeah, that's a good point regarding the left hook, and I think once again Ali's speed and his footwork would be a huge factor here. But beyond that, Ali was a 15-run fighter. I wouldn't expect him to wear down. Whatever he did in round 1, I anticipate that he could do in round 12. Now, I advise him to stay clear of that right hand of Deontay Wilder and not test his chin. But if he did get tested, I mean, Ali had the savvy, he had the smarts. That'd be another great fight in terms of the buildup. But I gotta lean toward the GOAT here. What about Anthony Joshua?
I think Ali was just too good of a boxer for Joshua. I think Ali would have popped Joshua relentlessly from the outside, which probably would have or could have demoralized him. And eventually, I think he would have worn him down. And like Wilder, as big a puncher as Joshua is, I'm not sure he could have landed a shot to turn the tide in his favor. Also, like Wilder, Joshua's best punch is his straight right. You need a special left hook, I think, to get to Ali. At least that's what we saw for in some of his big fights. Of course, like Fury, Ali never faced anybody with the combination of size and ability of Joshua. It might have been difficult for Ali, but I think maybe just for a while.
Yeah, I don't even think it would be difficult for Ali at all. I think that while Joshua has a lot of good traits, very good traits, he doesn't have anything in particular that would trouble Ali. I think he's slower than the first two guys we mentioned. Wasn't as fleet-footed, wasn't as fast a foot as the first two guys we mentioned. In terms of power, a good hitter, but not a one-punch KO guy. He's a triples kind of guy and has to string them together. And in fact, I think that Joshua, given his stamina issues in the past, fighting a guy like Ali who would be doubling, tripling the jab, and working the right hand behind it, that he'd be in danger of getting stopped late. Either way, I think Ali wins that pretty clearly. I'm starting to notice a pattern here. Yeah. What about Ali versus Andy Ruiz Jr.?
He could put anybody in. It doesn't matter.
Pretty much.
I want to see Ali against a prime Joe Louis. That's the fight I'd want to see. Andy Ruiz. I think Ali would have dominated Ruiz, who I respect. I have a lot of respect for. Ruiz has really quick hands for a guy his size, but his feet aren't particularly quick. I just don't think he could have kept pace with Ali, who would have just picked him apart while outmaneuvering him. And while Ruiz does have power, as he demonstrated in his first fight with Anthony Joshua, he doesn't have like Joe Frazier or George Foreman power. And they weren't even able to, hurt Ali badly. Although the left hook by Frazier that put Ali down in their first fight was just an all-time classic shot. Again, I like Ruiz. I just think he would have been baffled by Ali.
Yeah, he would. And I think Ruiz's weakness sort of plays into Ali's strengths. I mean, Ruiz has really fast hands, good chin and power, but his feet aren't as fast as his hands, and so I think he'd struggle to catch up with Ali, who would again be working that jab, using his feet, and probably able to bounce off, combinations off Ruiz's dome as well. And I think would be a very frustrating night for an excellent fighter, but one who hasn't thus far proven to be on the level of an Ali. Now, in closing, Anthony Joshua is fighting Alexander Usyk on Saturday night. Usyk, former undisputed champion, a little closer in height and weight to Ali. How would he have fared against the Great One?
Well, as you just mentioned, I think this matchup would have been interesting in part because Usyk is almost exactly Ali's size, 6'3", 217 plus in his last fight, and he's an excellent boxer like Ali. Ali actually weighed 188 pounds in one of his early fights, which would have made him a small cruiserweight at that point. Obviously, he got bigger, but he did start as a small guy. Also, remember, he won the gold medal in the Olympics, but that was at light heavyweight, so he wasn't that big of a guy early in his career. Anyway, they're about the same size. That said, as good as Usyk is, what could he do better than Muhammad Ali? The obvious answer is nothing. He isn't as quick and athletic as Ali was, and just isn't as good. Usyk is smart, though. I think he would have tried to crowd Ali in a similar way to Frazier. He just couldn't be as relentless or inflict the kind of damage Frazier could, though. So I just think that Usyk just wouldn't have the tools to hang with a guy Ali. I think Ali would probably win a wide decision in that fight.
Yeah, you mentioned that he wouldn't have he wouldn't be able to inflict the kind of damage on Ali that Frazier did, and I agree with you. And not only that, I'm not sure if he could take the kind of punishment that Frazier did. I could see Ali getting a late round stoppage here simply because Usyk would struggle to land anything from the outside. He'd try to come in and he'd take a lot of blows in doing so. So I think Ali wins a lopsided decision or wins via late round stoppage. One fighter I would have liked to see against Ali was Lennox Lewis, but another fighter who obviously the dream matchup for a lot of fans, a lot of casuals, I should add, as well as Mike Tyson versus Muhammad Ali. What's your take on that matchup?
Well, Tyson would be like Frazier to me. I guess there's technical differences, but they're very similar in styles, and they both guys would be in Ali's face. I think he would have probably given Ali some trouble for that reason, because Frazier gave him trouble every time they fought. But I'm gonna pick Ali to beat anybody. So it would be if they fought 3 times, Ali would win 3 times, but he'd have to work really hard all 3 times.
Yeah, I think so. But I like Ali in those matchups as well. And with that, that's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank David Benavidez and Robert Helenius for joining us. We want to thank you guys for listening. As a reminder, you can like, subscribe, and comment on the PBC Podcast wherever you found us. And be sure to check back in next week. We'll have more interviews, more boxing talk, more toe-to-toe, again, right here on the PBC Podcast.